There is a particular kind of fear that doesn't feel like fear at first. It feels like reason. It feels like wisdom. It sounds like not yet, not me, not now. You felt it. Most of us have. The future arrives like a stranger at your door, and something in you says, "Don't open it." This is the story of three men who heard that knock, who stood at the edge of something enormous and said, in different words, the same thing you and I have said. "I'm not ready for this." Their names were Moses, Gideon, Jeremiah. And what happened to them, what they became, is not a story about courage. It is a story about what happens when fear meets something larger than itself. Moses. He was 80 years old and had been living quietly for 40 years. The man who had once been raised in Pharaoh's palace was now a shepherd in the wilderness, far from everything he had once been, far from everyone who had once known him. He wasn't hiding exactly, but he wasn't looking for anything either. Then the bush burned, and the voice said, "Go back, free my people." And Moses, this man who had survived the palace, survived the wilderness, survived 40 years of silence, said, "Who am I that I should do this?" He didn't say it once. He said it 5 times, 5 separate objections, one after the other. Who am I? What if they don't believe me? I don't speak well. Please, send someone else. We read those words and sometimes we cringe at Moses, have more faith, we think, but read them again. Moses wasn't faithless, he was honest. He knew exactly how inadequate he was. He had tried once before when he was young and confident and burning with the right idea, and it had ended in disaster. A man dead, a life in ruins, 40 years of consequences. He didn't want to fail again. That fear, the fear of failing again after you already failed once, that fear is not weakness, that is wisdom wearing the wrong coat. And the voice didn't say, "Your fear is wrong." It said, "I will be with you." Gideon. He was threshing wheat in a winepress when the messenger found him. Not on a hilltop, not in a temple, in a winepress, hidden underground because the Midianites had been raiding his people's harvest for 7 years. Gideon was afraid. His people were afraid. Everyone was afraid. And the voice said, "Mighty warrior." Gideon looked around. "The Lord is with you." And Gideon said, "If the Lord is with us, why has all this happened? Where are all the wonders our fathers told us about? He has abandoned us. He wasn't worshipping. He was arguing. He did what honest people do when they're given a promise that doesn't match their reality. He pushed back. And then came the commission. Go in this strength you have. Save Israel. Gideon said, "My clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my family." He wasn't being modest, he was stating facts. And still, the commission stood. So Gideon asked for a sign. The sign came, and he was terrified by it. He rebuilt an altar. And then that night, he tore down his father's altar. Not in the open, in daylight, where people might see, but in secret, at night, because he was afraid of his family and the men of the town. The text doesn't hide that, it says it plainly. The man called Mighty Warrior waited until they were asleep before he moved. And he still moved. That is not a story about fearlessness. That is a story about a man who was terrified and went anyway. Jeremiah. He was young, possibly 17, possibly younger, when the word came to him. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. And Jeremiah said, I do not know how to speak. I am only a child. The calling arrived before the capability. The appointment came before the preparation. He was given a task that exceeded everything he had, and he said so. Clearly, immediately, the response was not, "You're right, I'll find someone older." The response was, "Do not say you are only a child. You will go where I send you. You will say what I command you to say, and then I am with you." Jeremiah went, he spoke. He was mocked, threatened, thrown into a cistern, arrested. He wrote later, words so raw they have survived 3,000 years. Why did I ever come out of the womb to see trouble and sorrow? He was not a man who found this easy. He was a man who found it nearly unbearable and kept going. 3 men. 3 different fears. Moses feared failure because he had already failed. Gideon feared inadequacy because the evidence supported it. Jeremiah feared the task because it was genuinely too large for him. None of their fears were irrational. That is the part we don't say often enough. Their fears were reasonable. They were accurate assessments of real situations. Moses really was a fugitive. Gideon's clan really was the weakest. Jeremiah really was young. And yet, the calling didn't wait for the fear to leave. There is a version of this story that gets told as inspiration. Look at these men. They were afraid and became great. You can be great too. That version flattens something important, because the point is not that they became great despite their fear. The point is that the calling came to their fear, not around it, not after it had quieted. To it directly, while it was still present and loud and telling them to stay still. The fear didn't disqualify them. The fear may have been part of why they were chosen, because a person who is not afraid of the weight of a thing will carry it carelessly. The ones who shake under the responsibility, who argue, who ask for signs, who say, "I'm only a child," they have understood something true about the gravity of what they've been given. So here you are, afraid of the future, uncertain of the next step, carrying something that feels too large, or showing up too early, or asking you to be someone you're not certain you can be. This is not evidence that you've been overlooked. It may be evidence that something has found you. Moses moved, still afraid, still insufficient, still the same man who had failed before. Gideon moved, at night, when no one could see, probably shaking, moving anyway. Jeremiah moved, for 40 years, in a city that refused to listen. He didn't always want to, he said so, he moved anyway. You are allowed to be afraid. You are not allowed to believe that fear is the final answer. It never was for them.